Joy's Way. And this is a map for the Transformational Journey. This is Chapter 8 on meditation, breath control, spiral meditation, quickening, protection, and shielding. Because I have already mentioned meditation several times, you may wonder why it's taken me so long to get to a chapter of specific discussion and instruction on the subject. I hope that as you read this chapter, you will realize that the previous chapters gave information necessary to understand and to use this one. If, on the other hand, you got to this chapter by looking at the table of contents or the index and turning to the subject that interested you the most, I advise you to start at the beginning of the book and read it up to this point if you want to understand it and get the most value from it. Meditation is the empowering experience. In the stead of the narrow path of the outer mind, with its many endless circles and its cul-de-sac, meditation is the journey to everywhere of the entire universe, to the nowhere of the infinitesimal point at the center of the individual consciousness. And it joins the everywhere and the nowhere, demonstrating they both are one. Meditation is the journey into the essence of all, a spiral ever expanding into dimensions and experiences of awareness beyond the self, beyond thought forms, beyond time, beyond fear, beyond death, sometimes exploding into the super brilliant light of ascension, unshackling through resurrection to where self abides. In meditation, the pinhole of outer awareness begins to merge into the small aperture of self, which then begins to emerge through the wider lens of the collective, on through a great circle that is only a pore of the cosmic, and goes on into the light. To experience at will the naturally induced states of higher consciousness, to shift from the self to self, capital S, by nothing more than lowering the eyelids, to experience the melting of one solid definition into the soft, amorphous, undefined, to begin to claim one's inheritance as a conscious, universal entity. All can be accomplished through the art of meditation. I call it an art because it is not a skill as so many people believe. It is not available to all people. It is not available at all to people who know only the outer, unconditioned. No, let me start the sentence again. It is not available at all to people who know only the outer, conditioned aspect of the mind and who fear their own mortality. Meditation is divinity's playground. Teachers throughout the ages have warned the aspirant that as empowering by meditation commences, the inner eye must be kept on the golden thread that guides the awareness into awakening, on through enlightenments, and finally to illumination. Attachment to any preliminary level of awareness along the way initiates a process to return toward the level of the outer mind. Detachment is a ticket home. Home, capital H. As a beginning experience in meditation, 2 or more levels of awareness begin to play off one another. The mind erects paradoxes difficult to believe, impossible to describe. Each aspect of the paradox is comprehensible only from its own level of perception, so that the 2 or more sides can never meet, but an inner necessity drives one deeper to more expanded states. And there, on a still deeper level, a single insight resolves the dichotomy. Other experiences of meditation are as follows. What is madness to one soul is bliss to another. One's various component aspects, all at once in dialogue with one another. Guides, teachers, angels, and demons. The comprehension of poetry, or poetic language, attempting to describe sublime or mystical states, a language that is almost, if not downright, irrational to the linear mind. Chatter, seemingly endless chatter, and then the contrast of silence into silence, capital S. Meditation is finally an infinite experience for the awareness to explore. There are as many different ways to meditate as there are meditators. One excellent book on the more classical approaches is The Varieties of the Meditative Experience by Daniel Goleman, Goleman. I recommend it for its conciseness, but not necessarily for its inclusiveness. There are many, many books on the subject. So many, in fact, that I simply prefer to discuss my own approach first with a general description, then with step-by-step directions. You have an innate ability to meditate. It is not something you have to learn how to do. You do not have to allow time for the experience, but in essence, you do not have to structure the act itself. I did not meditate until January 1972, when Eunice, in one of her public classes, suggested that we begin by going into meditation for 25 minutes. There were 100 people there, and the 99 others all seemed to know what to do. Begin your relaxation process with breath control, Eunice instructed us. What on earth is breath control? I asked myself. I suspected, with apprehension, that I was probably the only one in the entire audience who had never meditated before. Eunice told us to take our shoes off, sit straight in our chairs, both feet on the floor, our hands relaxed, palms up, on our thighs and our eyes closed, and to breathe. In through the nose slowly, said Eunice. Everyone took in a slow, deep breath through the nose. That's it. A little deeper. Expand the chest fully. Feel the prana enter your lungs. Now hold your breath. I was obviously doing it wrong. I had reached the full expansion of my lungs long before anyone else, and I was already feeling the need to exhale and take in another breath. Now hold the breath for a count of 7, Eunice said gently. I'm going to faint, I thought. I tried to relax into her very slow count of 7. Feel the energy flood your body, Eunice was saying between counts 4 and 5. What energy? I was thinking, all my energy's been used up. You are all doing so well, Eunice serenely continued. That's it. 6, 7. Now slowly exhale through the mouth, with the tongue touching the roof of the mouth. And be sure there is a quiet hissing sound as you exhale slowly. The sound I produced was more like a high-powered exhaust fan. But by then I didn't care. All I could think about was how empty my lungs were and to be able to get more air in. Slowly now, Eunice directed. Don't exhale too rapidly. Keep your awareness on the energy that is now entering every cell of your body. If I don't get some air quickly, somebody's going to have to resuscitate me, I screamed silently to myself. This is ridiculous. If I can breathe very quietly without anyone knowing, maybe I can catch my breath. So I began to breathe as quietly as possible, but as rapidly as possible without making too much of a sound. I was sneaking in 2 breaths for every one that the rest of the class was taking. You're not doing it right, Eunice said lovingly. She did not mention my name, but I could feel her voice aimed directly at me. How could she possibly know? I opened my eyes to see that she was indeed looking at me. I smiled. Close your eyes, Brugh, and see if you can catch up with the group. She said it so smoothly that she never for a second lost track of the group or missed a single count. Slowly I took in a deep breath, and I felt an energy surge into my lungs. Holding my breath for a count of 7 was suddenly easy. I could concentrate my attention on the energy that seemed to be flooding my body as I slowly exhaled, and now I too could make the appropriate soft hissing sound. It was a wonderful sensation, completely achieved by the time she finished with the breathing exercise and told us to breathe naturally and quietly, and to let our awareness gently relax into a quiet, clear pool of warm water. I don't remember anything after that. I was off into my first exploration of expanded awareness, totally blanked out. I next remember Eunice saying, "Come out now. That's it. Slowly. Feel yourself enter your body. Begin to move your hands, arms, legs. That's it. Fine. Is everybody back? Some of you are still not coming back. 25 minutes is enough in the beginning stages." 25 minutes, I thought. Seemed like 2 or 3 minutes. My outer mind was confused. Wherever I had gone, it gave the impression of being deep, serene, and nourishing. My own outer mind thought that I'd probably fallen asleep, but my deeper intuition told me differently. I had entered a state of consciousness beyond the outer awareness. I had to trust that what had happened was beneficial. Eunice told me after class that she had hardly been able to keep from laughing as she watched my energy field at the beginning of the meditation. She said, in fact, that she had directed some energy to me to allow me to relax into the exercise. I was convinced because I knew that as soon as she had looked at me, something had happened. The sense of being out of breath had suddenly been dissipated. When I told her that I had blanked out, she seemed pleased. "Oh, that's wonderful, Brugh. One of the highest forms of meditation is loss of awareness." This reassuring explanation did not satisfy my outer mind. It was too busy being incensed that it had not been able to participate. But my body did feel unusually relaxed and vital, and my whole mind, experienced clarity and a sense of harmony. There are some significant points about this first meditation. First, and most important, I trusted Eunice more than any other living person. Her presence ignited me. I don't think I could have let go of the control of my outer mind without this trust. When we all entered into the quiet breathing part of the exercise, I was not aware of body boundaries. I felt expanded and fluid. I was floating in that warm, clear pool of water, unaware that I was in a room with 99 other people. Somehow, my consciousness fused into the group field. Individuality had disappeared, and I didn't care. And finally, Eunice radiated confidence and mastery. Her words at the beginning of the experience dispelled my anxiety. I have realized since that a group meditative field consistently induces a meditative state in anyone sitting in or near the group, if the person will allow his or her awareness to relax. So, if you wish to experience meditation quickly and easily, find an experienced meditation group and join it. Just sitting next to even one person who is meditating can be enough. Eunice taught that the state of unconditional love, once it was experienced, could be utilized at the center point of awareness to allow the exploration of any state of consciousness in meditation. As long as one was encapsulated in love, nothing experienced in meditation could be detrimental. My own experience has proved the generalization to be true. One can get into some really frightening states and other states where one holds on to other emotions, but the important state of love, capital L, allows their exploration without reaction. Each morning in a 2-week conference, an hour for meditation is set aside between 6 and 7 a.m. People who want this experience are invited to meditate in the seminar room, a large space, a floor double padded and carpeted with huge pillows on which to sit. The hour is one of complete silence on the entire ranch, so that people who find meditation difficult with conversation or noisy activity can enjoy the quiet. It is not mandatory that everybody meditate in the more formal sense at that hour or any other. I have found that many people enter meditative states while walking, or while doing Tai Chi, swimming, or jogging. Many who've never meditated before do find the energy of the seminar room conducive to the experience. My personal preference is to quiet myself and, without foregoing a pathway into some preconceived idea about what should be experienced in meditation, to allow my awareness to be guided into the expanded states by that portion of my consciousness that really knows. Most important, I do not try to discriminate whether I am in a meditative or a contemplative state of awareness, or whether anything is happening. I trust that the higher aspects of my beingness, as they direct the experience, will bring to my awareness what is necessary for my development into the highest potential for this lifetime. I do not try to define what that potential is, nor am I concerned that my potential in this lifetime may not be total illumination. In meditation, I do not feel fulfilled. I feel more than I am forever in a continuing, never completed process of being fulfilled. Fundamentally, the experience of meditation teaches the outer awareness how to shift its perspectives both horizontally and vertically. Within one vertical level of awareness, many different horizontal perspectives are available. One doesn't, however, have to try out all the horizontal perspective in that level. A few can suffice. The shift to a higher vertical level gives new dimensional perspectives, that is, a new and different set of horizontal perspectives, and an overview vaster than that available on the lower, less expanded level. As a rule, attachment to one level leads to horizontal exploration, while detachment activates the vertical exploration. Meditation is a tool of the consciousness, not an end in itself. Do the kind of meditation that intuitively feels right to do, whether it is formal posturing or a quiet nature walk. As has been documented time and time again, cosmic awareness happens whether you meditate or not. You don't make it happen. It happens to you. All you really have to do is get out of the way and stop blocking your own unfolding development. A few other suggestions may be helpful. Meditating while lying in bed in the morning is generally, but not always, ineffective. For most people, the horizontal position is too strongly associated with sleep and the hypnagogic borderline of sleep, which are not meditative states. Some research studies seem to indicate that the sitting position, whether cross-legged or an East Indian lotus position, or even in a chair, increases the alertness of the consciousness for meditation. If the mind persists in chattering away, interfering with meditation, I recommend creating for the chatter inside a huge auditorium filled with people. Don't be stingy about the size of the auditorium or the number of people you create. Then just tell the chatterer to talk to all those people and to keep them entertained while you go ahead with your meditation. All the chatterer wants is an audience. So by splitting your consciousness into a portion that listens and the vaster portion that doesn't have to listen, the problem can often be overcome. This method works far better than trying to kill the chatterer, an act that requires a great deal more energy than it takes to create a large auditorium packed with people. The less importance you give to the mind chatterer, the greater the opportunity of overcoming this common disruption of meditation. Meditating on a full stomach is almost impossible. You will find that meditation is easier to get into and feels much more expanded on an empty stomach. For most people, the early morning hours are the most conducive to deep meditative states. After a morning meditation, one's day is apt to have a feeling of greater serenity. The meditative state not only induces profound relaxation, but it also clears mental and physical fatigue. As a result, meditation before bedtime reduces the need for sleep. In fact, this hyper-aware state that follows meditation the hyper-aware state that follows meditation sometimes makes it difficult to fall asleep. If you wish to meditate more often than just in the morning, I suggest you avoid evening sessions. Try late afternoon periods instead. How much time you spend in meditation is up to you. At first, allow an hour of quiet time. If you find that your meditation is over in 10 minutes, don't just sit for the rest of the hour with your mind whirling on the day's activities. Get up and start your day. Some days your meditation will sweep you into a timeless state where the hour will seem like minutes. I recommend a beginning meditation by feeling into what the experience of unconditional love would be like if one were to enter this state of awareness. Other experiences will begin to appear as the technique develops. Gandhi is supposed to have said that 5 minutes in meditation, contemplating unconditional love, would do more for the world than filling starving people's rice bowls. My outer limited material mind might say, ridiculous, to Gandhi's statement, but my inner vision knows the power of love. It agrees with Gandhi. During a personal counseling session with Eunice, I felt a most overwhelming outpouring of love. Eunice paused and then said, Brugh, if you only knew how many people over many, many lifetimes have sent unconditional love to you, knowing that at some time your beingness would open to all that love. What you are feeling is all of their love, flooding your awareness. It's happening now because you have in this moment opened to it. Love sent to another soul surrounds that soul, awaiting the time when the outer mind of that individual opens the door. No one can open the door for another. Tears poured from my eyes. I knew she spoke the truth. I was swept into a state of bliss beyond words. Love cannot be overemphasized, either in meditation or in the outer experience of life. In general, there are two broad, mutually exclusive approaches to meditation. In the first, one excludes or blocks out from awareness any outer activity or sound. One simply tunes out everything. This technique requires quiet space. The second approach is inclusive and utilizes all sound and action to heighten the meditative state. It's used in the practice of Zen meditation. I prefer the second approach because I find that with it, I can take any energy, such as the sound of conversation, music, or a telephone ringing and transmute it into a catapult to take me into deeper states of awareness. This approach also enables me to meditate anywhere and at any time. Breath control in itself is a really amazing experience. If one does it properly, the lightness one feels is not caused by hyperventilation. Instead, something else indefinable happens. I know from my own experience that the body energy fields are modified by controlled breathing, and that modulation of the breath can modulate the flow of energy from the hands. As you go on, you will probably have this experience yourself. Experiment with it. My initial meditation with Eunice was as I described it. Step-by-step directions may help you to use it directly too. You are going to perform a series of 10 controlled breaths, seated in a chair or on the floor in any of the ways described. With your shoes off and your eyes closed, begin to inhale slowly through your nose. And when your lungs are fully expanded, hold your breath without tension while you slowly count to 7, and then slowly exhale through your mouth with your tongue touching the front of the roof of your mouth so that you can make a slight hissing noise. Exhale slowly and completely. And then start the cycle over again. Repeat it for a total of 10 times. This technique is a wonderful way to attune and prepare the awareness for any meditation. Breath control can be a meditation in itself if it's carried out for a period of time, but I prefer to use it as a beginning, a way to relax into whatever form of meditation I may choose at a given moment. After the cycle of 10 breaths, one might, for example, begin the contemplation of unconditional love. Or one might practice the visualization technique already discussed of pinning numbers on a blank curtain. One could just let go and let God, not focusing on doing anything, but sitting quietly, sensing after well-beingness. Or one could begin the spiral meditation, which is to be presented later in this chapter. Remember, however, that meditation, any meditation, is over when you begin to re-enter ordinary awareness, when the expanded state feels as if it is waning. Don't try to stop that re-entry. There is always another opportunity for another deepening meditation. You will find that there are times when 5 minutes is too long and other times when an hour isn't long enough. In the exploration of the higher dimensions of consciousness, balance is a key concept, and balance in the hours spent in meditation is important. I very often see people trying to achieve some sort of state of enlightenment through the practice of prolonged meditation without proper guidance. What these people do not understand is that trying is not the mechanism by which higher states are achieved. They are achieved through the mechanism of allowing. Too much forced meditation instead of expanding the consciousness can fatigue the mind and body. Sometimes inducing states of psychosis that are difficult to clear. There are times I consciously give myself permission not to meditate in the morning. I don't whip myself or feel guilty about it. Something inside me knows when my attention needs to be focused on matters in the outer plane. But I always set aside an hour each morning for the experience, whether I meditate or not. Part of the meditative experience is the development of a witness state. And unconditional love is one pathway to it. In the witness state, an impersonal observer can be found within one's awareness. It simply observes, without reaction to whatever passes before its awareness. It usually cannot be achieved or further developed without unconditional love, or, as you may realize, without the 3 admonitions heard by the clairvoyant woman on the Santa Monica beach. As I've already said, unconditional love is totally unemotional and impersonal. Yet there is an inexplicable and indescribable feeling to it. The feeling is beyond a sense of integration, intimacy, and inspiration, but it includes those feeling tones in, however, a non-emotional nature. From this witness state, it is possible to go even farther, to a place where not even compassion is felt. This state is the high indifference that Western mystic Franklin Merrill Wolff discusses in his books, Pathway Through to Space, and The Philosophy of Consciousness Without an Object. As he says, and I'm paraphrasing now, the state is so inhuman that few people ever venture to develop it. Although it seems contrary to all our impulses towards feelings for others and even ourselves, it is an essential tool to master, because high indifference brings a detail of observation and a clarity of insight unattainable by any other means. Many people have inquired about my inner teacher, with which I dialogue in some meditations. Although the specific aspects of my teacher don't really matter at all, it is very important to realize that one can contact or create one's own inner teacher. After Eunice died, I realized that no more outer teacher was possible for me, and my total intention in meditation then was to allow my consciousness to carry me into the discovery of an inner teacher. The basic conception and my allowing it were all that were necessary for the experience to occur. In such matters, one's individual consciousness is capable of the most magnificent expressions. Trust it. In this case, trust the state of awareness you begin to experience centered around the level and experiences of the heart chakra. Of the many voices inside everyone, some are the voices of people we know, or voices we know to be our own chatterers inside. But there is complication, even danger, if one is not opening to the honesty of one's beingness. When one is deceiving oneself, there are voices that are not going to be helpful. They can be dangerous because they tell us to do all sorts of things that have nothing to do with the reality, with any reality, except a concocted one of our own thinking. Everyone exploring higher awareness passes through thought areas that may have voices associated with them. We can and we must learn to ignore the negative or erroneous voices. It is a painstaking process from which no one escapes. Keeping your intention clearly on the heart area and exploration of love will greatly simplify this development sequence for you. The Great Spiral Meditation came to me one morning in Findhorn as I was dialoguing with the inner teacher on the subject of chakras. During the meditation, I received an image of a naked man standing with his arms extended out from its sides. From the area of his heart chakra, a pattern of energy began to form. It flowed to the man's left and down in a spiral pattern to his solar plexus chakra, and continued to the right and up to the mid-chest, then left and down to the splenic chakra, right and down to the lower abdomen chakra, right and up to the throat chakra, and so on, the spiral to the root chakra, the forehead chakra, and then to the left elbow, left knee, right elbow, and up to the crown chakra, and around on to the left hand, left foot, right hand, and finally to an area of about 18 inches above the head, the transpersonal point. The vision was beautiful. All the major and important chakras were connected in a single spiral pattern. The inner teacher told me that I was to work with my own chakra system in the same sequence at the beginning of my meditations and at the end, to reverse the flow and the pattern of the spiral, working from the transpersonal point back to the heart. It is the soul-flowing geometric pattern that includes the splenic chakra. And I find it interesting that the heart contracts in a twisting spiral fashion, not like a pump, and that the basic DNA molecule is a double helix, a modification of the spiral. During fetal development, the lower extremities in humans are twisted into a partial spiral so that the knee is rotated 180 degrees in relationship to the elbow. On a grand scale, we are moving through a space in a series of simultaneous spirals, and we are situated in a symmetrical spiral galaxy. In the classical literature of metaphysics, the Egyptians, Japanese, Tibetans, and Sufis all teach that the center of the body is the abdomen, near or just below the umbilicus. And many present-day students of metaphysics believe that the ancient scriptures are still to be followed exactly as they were 2,000 to 2,500 years ago. My placing of the center of energy awareness at the heart center quite obviously contradicts these old teachings. I believe that the consciousness of human beings has evolved and is evolving, and that the point of focus is shifting from a point below the diaphragm to a point above the diaphragm. I see no need at this point to reestablish and reinforce what essentially was the level of development thousands of years ago. We are preparing for a transformation of consciousness that supersedes the past, moving from the more power-controlled areas, the areas of mastery of the material plane, into a blend with the higher awareness that is associated with the upper chakras. The root chakra, the sexual chakra, and the solar plexus, splenic chakras, comprise the lower triangle. It is associated primarily with the physical and emotional planes. The heart, throat, forehead, and crown chakras are associated with the developing spiritual awareness of humanity. The heart chakra, the fourth level, sits midway between the lower triangle and the main upper chakras. This shift of the center upward will imbue humanity with a sense of relationship, the deeper aspects of which rest on spiritual values rather than on power and control over others. Humanity has been in a transitional state of awakening since the last century. Transitional states are always chaotic, as the cadavers of old rigid institutions begin to crumple, and the new visions come into the birthing process. Change, no matter how painful, is essential to life, and change is what we are just beginning to experience now. The statement that humanity's fulcrum has moved upward and across and past the diaphragm may be painful to traditionalists, but so to earlier traditionalism was the realization that the earth is not the center of the universe. As I said previously, most of our beingness is not centered in the physical body. The shift to the heart is a beginning reflection of this actuality, a shift to the relationship between the body and the spirit. So, in the spiral meditation, you center your awareness in humankind's approaching center, the heart chakra area, leaving behind personal concerns and centering into a more universal state of awareness. As awareness rests into the heart chakra, you sense a feeling of warmth, expansion, or vibration in that area. In my experience, working with my own chakras in morning meditation, I do not leave the heart chakra until I feel that it is fully activated, guiding my awareness into unconditional love for all life. With this activation, there is an almost orgasmic sensation in the area of the chakra. I then envision the beginning of the spiral pattern, carrying the essence of the heart chakra to the solar plexus, focusing my attention on it until it is activated. I repeat this process, going to each successive chakra in the spiral and waiting until it feels activated. Again, with the physical sensation that is closer to bliss than to orgasm. After I have proceeded through the activation of all the chakras in the spiral pattern, I finally rest, at the transpersonal point and relax totally into a meditative state. Later, when I'm ready to conclude the meditation, I begin at the transpersonal point and, working through the spiral in the opposite direction, prepare each chakra for its integration into the physical plane until reaching the heart chakra. I experience a sense of expanded appreciation for the opportunity to be alive, embodied, and spiritually quickened. I rededicate my beingness to service to humankind. There are more advanced steps possible in the spiral meditation, but the ones that I've outlined here are the basic ones I work with each morning. The natural order of awakening of the chakras is not, as is often taught, in a straight line, a step-ladder pattern up from the root to the crown and back down again. In the natural pattern, as I see it, the chakras are awakened in ascending pairs. First, the second, the sexual chakra, is transformed to the fifth, throat chakra, reflecting the transformation from physical procreativity activity to such aesthetic creativity as art, literature, and music. The second transformation is from the third chakra, the solar plexus, to the fourth, the heart, reflecting the change from emphasis on power and emotional aspects of awareness to the more collective and unconditional states of awareness imbued with love. Finally, the first chakra, the root chakra, is activated, its energies ascending to the seventh or crown chakra. There are effects on the head centers with the two transformations, but the third, the root to crown, represents the unbelievable energy variously called the fire, the serpent fire, the kundalini energy, the fire of transformation. When it is fully activated and begins to ascend through the energy pathways, connecting each of the successive chakras, the process is called the rising of the kundalini. It sweeps the individual into cosmic states of awareness. The kundalini energy can also be awakened through a willed action. This uncontrolled awakening in somebody who has not prepared the higher chakras for such an intensity of energy can be devastating, causing not only great physical pain, but psychological pain as well. Gopi Krishna's book, The Kundalini, the Evolutionary Energy in Man, clearly demonstrates the consequences of awakening this last transformational energy surge in an individual who was unprepared. It is important at this point to discriminate between active chakras and awakened chakras. Even in the most unawakened individual, all the chakras in the human being are active. But in most people, they function primarily in relation to the physical body in the physical manifest plane, and in the more subtle manifest planes to the etheric body. These chakras are in what is called a dormant or resting state of activity. Despite the terminology, energy activity from these dormant or resting chakras is readily felt with a scanning technique. An awakened chakra is functioning at an entirely different level of activity. An awakened chakra not only feels different in scanning, it looks different in clairvoyant vision. If some of this material sounds familiar, especially to one who has read Alice Bailey, I make no apology. Whoever and whatever my inner teacher is obviously familiar with the concepts channeled not only by Alice Bailey, but by Rudolf Steiner, Edgar Cayce, and others as well. I was amazed when in January 1977 I read Alice Bailey's book, Esoteric Healing, and found in it many concepts that I had received from the inner teacher and had already been teaching in my conference work. Several physical phenomena are associated with the focusing of the energy flow in the body. They can be inexplicable and frightening experiences. A discussion of them may give the reader some insight as to what to expect. It is important to emphasize once again the necessity of clearly setting one's intention to experience the heart chakra awareness and not to be seduced by any of the byproducts that may manifest along the way. The Quakers are called the Quakers because when in a form of spiritual ecstasy, they quake. The Shakers are called Shakers because in a similar state, they shake. Others call this quaking or shaking phenomena quickening. And it is similar to, if not the same as, the reaction that can occur in the beginning process in subud and in other forms of induction or initiation that produce an altered or heightened state of consciousness. Often, this physical reaction appears spontaneously, anywhere, from several months to several years after one begins daily meditation. The muscular response is not volitional, and it stops if the state of consciousness is broken. Recently, I've been hearing more and more about it from people who do not meditate and who have never heard or read about such a phenomena, who have had this experience, especially at night in bed. For me, the quickening began within a few weeks after I first met Eunice. I was sure that the big California earthquake had struck. I jumped out of bed and was heading for safety when I realized nothing in the room had been disturbed. In particular, a hanging light fixture in my room wasn't swinging. The same thing happened several nights later, several nights in succession, and each time it startled me. The whole bed seemed to shake. I always checked my pulse to see whether I was having heart palpitations, and my heartbeat was always regular. Finally, I had to conclude that my body was shaking or going through strange, repetitive muscular contractions. When I told Eunice, she laughed and she said, "Oh, that's just the beginning of the inpouring of energy in preparation for your eventual awakening." I still have similar experiences, but over time they've been modified. Now, the sensation is like a fine motor, a very fine motor or fast vibration, centered at different times in different areas of my body, primarily in the chest, the neck, and the forehead area. This phenomena must be differentiated from the ordinary muscle twitches and occasional spasms that everybody feels. It is also to be differentiated from the restless leg syndrome, which physicians usually diagnose in older people. Their legs simply won't stay still during the night. Quinine usually remedies the situation, but it won't influence the quickening phenomena. I tried it. The most spectacular experience I've had in association with the quickening phenomena is what I call the super brilliant light space. In a morning meditation in February 1976, I had the sensation of a motor turning on in my chest area, and then I saw a momentary flash of blinding white light. In each subsequent meditation, and each night, just after I went to bed, I experienced the same blindingly intense flash of light. It was far more intense than looking at the sun or any other brilliantly lighted object that I had ever seen. I began to try to hold the light in my awareness, but I could not do it. The light was just too bright. The second was more than I could stand. A second was more than I could stand. The experience, sometimes skipping a few days, but always of the same quality, continued until November 1976. Then, one night, I was lying in bed, just about to fall asleep, when the motor came on. But this time, it wasn't the usual motor. This time, it was like a diesel truck. Its vibration shook not only me, but also the king-size bed. It was first centered in my chest area, then moved into my lower abdomen, then up towards my head. On came the super brilliant light. It's not just a flash, and it did not stop. For a moment, I was terrified. Then I heard a voice say, "What do you think you have been preparing for?" I accepted it, and I relaxed into the experience. It lasted for about 6 hours. Intense white light, and the quaking of my whole body. The next morning, I felt unusually rested, and nothing appeared grossly different to my awareness. But over the next few months, I recognized that my work was maturing, and my ability to see energy fields was beginning to increase. Something subtle yet profound had happened to me that night. Since that evening in November 1976, the super brilliant light experience and the quickening phenomena have rarely occurred, but I noticed not long ago the beginning of the original flashing pattern, the same as the one that began in February 1976. Perhaps another cycle has begun. Before leaving this section on meditation, there is one subject that should be covered: the concept of the shielding or protection that is needed when one begins to enter expanded states, either through meditation or through induction by a teacher. Although the outer rational mind may not accept that there are any forms of energy called astral or elemental entities capable of doing injury or harm, the actual experience of or encounter with such an energy form usually brings a wide-eyed stampede for information on shielding. As I wrote in the section about Eunice, as the teacher, my own outer mind refused to take any part in it. Now, let me read the sentence again. As I wrote in the section about Eunice as the teacher, my own outer mind refused to take any part in what I felt was sheer paranoia and fantasy concerning this aspect. Even in my beginning conference work, I gave only lip service to the concept of shielding. First of all, I really did not believe that it was important. And second, I was working primarily with people who considered such thinking sheer childish superstition. Now, however, having been hit twice by such energy fields, I know better. In my current conference work, I ask that people consider the concept of protection and shielding not as an aspect of psychic defense, but as an aspect of wisdom. The lesson I use comes from the wonderful example of the butterfly. I have contemplated this life form for hours on end and have many stories to share about it. I see the life cycle of the butterfly as the quintessence of the transformational process. Right here, however, I want to focus on one particular aspect of the caterpillar butterfly transformation, the phase of the chrysalis. When the butterfly is ready to begin the process of transmutation of its physical form, it creates, out of its own physical beingness, the shield of protection necessary for this process. Some species do not actually weave a cocoon, but instead, in some way, harden the outer skin to form a chrysalis. In either case, a defense against ordinary outside elements is necessary while the critical changes are taking place inside. Open a chrysalis and the process of transformation ceases. The caterpillar during transformation will be destroyed by the sunlight alone, an energy that did not phase the caterpillar earlier in its natural skin defense. The analogy of the human transformational process is clear. While the human being is in relatively unawakened and unaware stages of development, while it is in the caterpillar phase, the human consciousness is surrounded by a natural shield of energy. When the time of transformation arrives, however, this natural protection of shielding is disrupted or is simply inadequate. One must begin the process of developing a chrysalis, an energy field that buffers the ordinary did not need to be buffered before. One must begin the process of developing a chrysalis, an energy field that buffers what ordinarily did not need to be buffered before. As will be demonstrated in the chapter on techniques, all energy follows thought. Therefore, all that is necessary to develop a protection or shield is to conceive of an energy surrounding the entire body and give it the qualities of shielding against any action that may disrupt the transformational process. The usual teaching is to surround oneself with white light. Other techniques can be used, but I think this simplest and most familiar approach is often the most effective. Note that when the process of transformation is complete, after the butterfly is fully developed, the need for the chrysalis ceases. The butterfly emerges, ready to explore a new dimension of beingness. Similarly, when the transformational process is completed in a person, conscious shielding is no longer required. In conclusion, I must point out that no one can say which of the paths or techniques of meditation is the correct, in quotes, approach. I definitely do not know. I intuitively feel that every technique can be valuable, but only in relation to the present needs and to the state of development of each individual. One must honor the moment of one's beingness as it is and deal less with specific details than with a general, constant intention clearly set to rise to more inclusive states of action and awareness. There is an old axiom in medicine. If there are many treatments for a disease, it is because no one knows much about that disease. I suspect that the same axiom is true for meditation. Whatever method works for you, follow it, and have the courage to say no to a teacher, inner or outer, when it doesn't.